We get the preview of the future. Theodore Miller, as he was walking to the ring in a coliseum, he's reminiscing about when the professor says to him that he won't be a magician. As he was now face to face with his opponent, he then starts casting a fireball and they begin, with their attack clashing. Dust can be seen everywhere while blocking his view. His opponent summons few water serpent-like creature and attacks him. He steps back to dodge it. Before they could get him, he summons Mitra, creating a stone wall from the ground to block the attack, again creating dust around him. And with the beam of light he attacked his opponent, but she cast a barrier in the nick of time. As they looked at each other eye to eye, the crowd awaits for their next move. Then she summons hundreds or thousands of blades made of water. He readies his spells to counter it, and at once it creates a sonic boom. And now we're back to a flashback. The professor asks him again on why he's ignoring the facts and challenging it, and he answers because he wants to become a magician. Now in the present, in a gloomy room, the professor has called Theodore on him having an almost perfect score in all the subjects, but reminds him that writing perfect notes is not the important thing in this magic academy. And regarding his magic performance during the remainder of time, if he cannot pass it, then he won't be able to graduate from this school. This upsets Theodore as he grits his teeth. Then the professor asked when how long has he been here. He then states that he is in the second circle and it's not a master yet. And the professor states that this is bad because he's been attending at this school for 5 years, yet he's still in the second circle and haven't reached master yet. But Theodore knows this. And the reality is he doesn't have a single person who is in his side, as everyone mocks and laugh at him. But he knows he have come too far, there's no turning back now. So he goes to a library. Guess the only thing he can do right now is study. Not many people go to the library because the academy is a practical-oriented one, so it's usually quiet. As he was studying the books he was about to read, he noticed a book that he is seeing for the first time, and as soon as he touched it, the book devours him. As he was still in shock, the book calls up to him, and it turns out the book monster is fused with his hands. He was so shocked he screamed from the top of his lungs. As the monster laughs and states that it was too early to be shocked, as he was confused on why the monster is talking. Then the monster says that he wants to eat. So you grab the nearest book he can get. Theodore tries to stop it, but he couldn't, so the monster ate the book. In that moment Theodore felt an intense sensation, with the voice now in his head, tells him what to do and what he yearns for a long time. He then cast a lightning bolt. Then a voice notifies him that second circle magic scale lightning bolt has been acquired, and the book he had awakened from its long sleep is currently very hungry. To satiate the hunger of the magic book he has to follow the magic book's path and feed it a lot of books now. Remaining time is 10 minutes and 4 books left till the hunger is satiated. Then he thinks to himself, what is this that he is hearing and what is the monster doing in his hand? He was fascinated because in the past he can't even cast a lightning bolt, and did he even have a power to blow up a bookshelf at one go? But now with his hands that ate up the books he now can do that and knows that it is an opportunity for him. Then he asked for the monster's name. The monster requests that it will tell him after he feed it. Theodore would be more than glad to feed him, as he looks at the countless books in the library. During the time he was feeding the monster he was able to learn a lot of things because of the mysterious voice, and that the identity of the monster is an ancient magic book from an era long forgotten even in history books, and that it eats book and other magic-related objects to increase its strength and satiate its hunger. The book it eats provides power to the host it latches onto, and if it is not fed to its heart's content, it will eat its host instead. And when he feeds the information in the book will flow into him as a voice. After that he will learn it by heart. But if the quality of the book is bad or it is not understood by the host, then it will be ineffective. He then absorbed the 4 books he was required. Then a sudden pain he felt in his head because of the excessive intake of knowledge he did. Now he will have to feed in moderation, but it was still worth the pain. After completing his quest he then asks again the monster name. The monster wants it to be called Gluttony. As Theodore wasn't satisfied with the answer, the monster again told another rule about sating its hunger. Gluttony was about to sleep, so it encouraged Theodore to ask another question. So Theodore asked about its existence. Gluttony knows he cannot comprehend it with words, so it just shows partial of its true form, revealing to him that he was like a Lovecraftian-looking being. And put informations to his brain. Then Gluttony sleeps. There's a brief introduction of Gluttony that he acquired from him, that his Gluttony is still unstable. There is some kind of guide in form of a voice that coexist with him. Secondly, gluttony will wake up every day to satisfy its hunger. After filling its stomach, it will answer one of his questions. Third, gluttony knows what kind of power the prey has, and it can pinpoint the power more accurately than any other magic spells. And finally, gluttony extracts the essence of the prey which it absorbs, and the effect is proportional to the host's understanding level. And then he smiles because his worthless existence is behind him now. In a change of scene, the two professors were conversing with each other. Then another professor appeared with a disgusting smug on his face, asking Professor Vince about Theodore being not a dropout this year. Was there some kind of development? Then Professor Vince thinks on how Theodore, son of a ruined noble, is sometimes a nuisance to him and that he should realize that he is incompetent. But he then answers to Professor that he let Theodore repeat the grade, and as a professor they have to know how to guide and teach the students, and that it's embarrassing to say that. The professor answers that he didn't mean to offend Professor Vince and that he was just organizing the personnel list, that's why he asked. Then Professor Vince looks up to the sky and thinks to himself that he believes in Theodore Miller. We are brought to Theodore Miller as he was stacking up booking for Gluttony to eat. Thanks to the ability he acquired, he can easily memorize and differentiate a good book from a bad one, because Gluttony wouldn't just eat any book, so he has to find a high-quality one, and that he require 3 books now. Theodore gets a bit irritated on how picky Gluttony was, but held back cause he really is beneficial to him. As they were searching for a book, they notice a book below them that looks precious. The book was titled Belanti's Family's Manuscript. The name of the man who published this book, Ballistic Magic, is Alfred Belanti's, the Prince of Belanti's. At first he used magic just at first circle level, and he climbed to the highest position all with his hard work. He was the unique Belanti's war hero. Before he was a prince, he was the best magician. He was the master of magical combat, and he was known to be the best soldier. Although he was a great magician from 80 years ago, he is a popular name till now. The reason for his popularity lies in his unique way of using magic. The magic he used was in form of magic missiles. Theodore was hesitant to eat this book cause he was afraid to get caught, but he knows that he has to make a decision, so he commands Gluttony to eat it. Gluttony states that it is definitely a worthy book to synchronize with. As Theodore was thinking what Gluttony meant by synchronize, his thoughts were sucked and synchronized with the author's memory. To follow the memory of Alfred Belanti's, the Prince of Belanti's, his thoughts were sent back from 45 years ago. We have now been moved to the front line of Belanti's. He looked around and realized he was in a battlefield. He was not involved in the scene, but instead felt as if he were a bystander. He wondered if he had the ability to borrow the author's memory and absorb the essence of the book. He was suddenly aware of the owner of the body through which he was watching this scene. As the soldiers spied on their enemies and they were moving faster than they have expected, Prince Alfred took the lead. The enemy is equipped with a strong unit but only maintained by a single leader. Alfred knew that if they cut off the head of the enemy, they would be able to defeat them. So they then charged at the enemy. To not prolong the fight and prevent casualty, Alfred Belanti's declared that if anyone wanted to claim his head, he was ready and willing to meet them face to face. He called out for his opponent to provoke the leader. The enemy leader accepted the challenge and showed himself to Belant, and asks Alfred if he was in a right state of mind throwing his weapon and challenging a warrior face to face while was a magician. But before he could finish his provocations, a magic missile blasted his head off. Enemies were shocked, decided to attack Alfred altogether. But Alfred fired magic missiles in all directions all at once, killing them instantly. As Theodore see through in this in Alfred's eyes, he was amazed by the power of the magic missile Alfred had created through intense research and his remarkable insight to apply the modifications. Hundreds of modifications had been used to achieve such a powerful weapon, which was capable of killing enemies with its high penetrating power. The simplest yet perfect lethal move that only those who have walked a single path can master. In a change of scene, after they defeated the enemy, they have captured Belford Astro. The Marquis was a person who burned down villages and caused men to lose their wives by selling them off as slaves. That name Belford belongs to someone who is worse than a dog. As the Marquis was pleading for his life, Alfred without a single hesitation blew the Marquis' head off. After this, Alfred broke the fourth wall and talked directly at Theodore, advising him that it's time for him to leave. The answer he's looking for cannot be found here. Go beyond Alfred's perspective and find his answer through his own efforts in reality. As Theodore was questioning how he was able to sense him, Alfred Belanti's synchro has ended, and was brought back to reality. But now he can use the magic missile. All the records of Alfred's researches are flowing into his head. As he was pointing at the ceiling while charging the magic missile, he noticed he cannot control it. He fires a white essence, then destroyed his ceiling. Noticing his hands are now in a bad state, he now realized that his physical body is lacking compared to the knowledge that he have, and his magic power that acts as the fuel still can't keep up. He then asks Gluttony for a method to increase his magic power. Gluttony answers that his question is too vague, because there are hundreds of ways to obtain magic power, but there's only one that it can teach him, so he will narrow it down to one method. Gluttony then lifted the restriction on essence extraction. Gluttony can now devour while sleeping, and during basic essence extraction, a new ability will be acquired and magic power will increase. If the object contains magic power, it will increase the magic power of the person who possesses it. Also, Theodore is now able to devour cursed items. Tons of tools can be found everywhere in the academy, but they're considered assets. While books are not being managed properly, there'd be someone in charge of tools. So he decides to get out. He then went to Professor Vince, as Theodore acquired the documents for him to go outside. Professor Vince asks why he wants to become a magician, and simply state that he have abilities that would shine in other fields such as in the scholarly field. It's because he wanted to become a magician, he simply answered. As he was about to leave, the guards reminds him to return before 7 p.m. He walked by in the city of Berghen, a city of business where everything is operated with magic power. Every items can be found in large quantities at dirt cheap prices in this place. Then to the city's outskirts. As he was walking, he kept on reminiscing about his foolish past. 3 years ago he came here a few times with someone that he no longer have anything to do with. Seeing this place again makes him sad, but they're just bastards who turned their backs on him. It's all in the past now. So he went in and asks if it's open. The store clerk replies that it hurts her mouth for her to tell him what's in here, so he can just look wherever he wants. She doesn't know much about the items here anyway. In a smuggler shop like this, it's normal not to get a proper explanation about the items. Basically speaking, it's dependent on your luck. If you buy a good item at a cheap price, if you're freaking unlucky, then you might even be cursed to death's door. Of course, that'd be the case if he came here without any preparations. But now, with Gluttony's new abilities, it's like he's taking a test while knowing the answers to it. Sinner's Iron Sword, a standard straight sword used by the prisoners of punishment in the Forgotten Royal Palace. Drachma Saber, the saber used by the desert mercenary Drachma. The thorns on the handle give off a menacing look. Eye of Arachne, the eyes of Arachne, who took 300 years to become an adult. It has weak magical power. The result is more than he expected. In addition to the information of the object, even the detailed figures are memorized. This place is mostly filled up with useless and rubbish materials. But still he picked a lot of items. The store clerks asks for 2 golds, but he knows that it was trash. So the store clerks wants him to show his ability if he was legit or a fraud. He gladly did and described the pipe he was given to appraise. So now the store clerk acknowledged him to be an appraiser, then asks him what's he doing here at her store. He answers he wants a simple transaction and that he will appraise for her, and that he takes the defective item as a payment for his service. This was a surprise for the store clerk. This was too good to be true, and thinks that is a scam, so she asked for the appropriate reason why he's doing this just to get defective items. He can't reveal Gluttony to her, so instead he proposed a coerced contract. As to keep the transactions a secret to a degree, they put their lives on the line for it to remain a secret. With that they sealed the deal. So he went back to his academy running while carrying all that junk before the gate closes. In a change of scene in the boys' dormitory, and we can see Theodore after washing up his sweats. He then decided to feed Gluttony an artifact. Rather than feeling it rushing into his head, it feels like it's melting. It is slowly boiling up inside him as it was completed digesting, increasing his magic capacity. He doesn't feel any pain but rather the feeling of consuming. Afterwards, the materials he gave to Gluttony to devour counted up to 15 items. Everything he brought back with him, it swallowed and digested them continuously, and he could feel inside his body the accumulation of numerous magic abilities and the hunger being gradually satiated. And finally, the second circle magic capacity within him overflowed to the point that it was unable to contain the magic anymore. In the end, his heart started swelling up. He steadily kept his eyes closed, and inside that silent void, he craved for a new circle. He then drew a big circle around the second circle, and began to cut out the strands of the world tree to cut the connections of the circles. He struggles but ultimately succeed to draw another circle. Then months have passed. The long winter vacation is coming to an end. As the time to open up the school inched closer, the students started arriving slowly with their baggages. We can see Theodore doing a morning routine, running in the snow and doing push-ups barehanded. He must have coated his arms with magic to not feel cold. He thinks to himself that 2 months have passed since then. Normally, he would have just dismissed whatever it was, but the reason for undertaking such a radical routine is because of that time when he synchronized with Alfred. A clear mind resides only in a healthy body. It was the most boldly written passage in the foreword to Ballistic Magic. For the first few days, it was a torment to wake up to exercise. But as the days pass by, he can see himself gradually changing as his body is being trained. And most importantly, the third circle that is carved inside my heart, that is the result of consuming 40 artifacts. Then he realized all of a sudden, that after all those years, it's only now that he is standing on the same starting point as his classmates. As he was shuddering and feeling cold because he was doing push-up barehanded, he is thinking if he overdone it, but he is glad the seat was warm. And his senses honed by intense training make him feel the sounds coming from afar. There are now 3 people walking at that entrance. 3 wild douche appeared, and the leader of them 3 tries to mock him, saying that he shouldn't be sitting there. But with a flick of his finger he sent that douche to his ancestors, zapping it with Dispel. 1 week has passed. Inside the chemistry class, the professor was lecturing them about full moon bead and why it may become poison if was mistreated. As the professor finished her statement, she asked Theodore on why that happens. So Theodore answers perfectly, but it still displeases the professor, so she asks Theodore to show the class the manufacturing method of the reagent of full moon bead, to make fun of him. So he then came down and tries to make one. But before that we are treated into a flashback explaining why the Academy's chemistry professor, Bernard Gemini, hated him is because he involuntarily messed with her self-esteem with his innocent questions. He simply inquire on why she was using a thesis that had been withdrawn from the Academy, and it strikes a nerve on her. So this action right now is just a petty revenge, and that he was the easiest target in this place. As he was thinking this, he was making the full moon bead. So after a few moments he finished it perfectly, exactly like the pictures in the book. This leaves the professor in this belief, cause she knows he was a flunk before. He then explained what he did and left the professor completely defeated, and he leaves the class like a Giga Chad. The news that he made a perfect combination of the full moon bead and chemistry class began to spread around the school like wildfire. Afterwards, the other professors started throwing tasks at him one after the other to test his abilities. There were skill tests that were a bit more difficult for the grade he was taking, but even though the intentions were full of malice, he did not complain and finished all the tests easily. During the semester, he tested out all the magic that he knew as theoretical knowledge only. The magic power that had grown through the various tests had carved out the 4th circle, moving beyond the 3rd circle. However, his mana sensitivity was still below average. But the difference between the magic abilities of other students and that of him was heaven and earth. Just like that, everyone's views of him were gradually changing, but the number of people who didn't like him was also increasing. And then another punching bag appeared, saying that they had been walking in shame around the school ever since Theo beats his brother, and is now full with rage. So he plans to crush Theo in the up-and-coming magic battle. In a change of scene where the professor is lecturing on the importance of the subject of magic battles and role of war magician to the government and why they are searching for recruits, because a trained infantryman can cut down 10 men, while a 4th circle magician can take down 100, and if they became a war magician, they can receive the best treatment in the army and be appointed to a special rank by the king himself. After the explanation, Professor Vince states the rules. First, one cannot use artifacts of any kind. Second, one cannot launch a surprise attack before the match commences. Third, one cannot randomly manipulate the order of the match. And if any one of these 3 simple rules were to be broken, he promised to throw the bastard out of the academy with his own hands. As the class understood, they start the first match of the class. First contestants in the first round are number 1 Garcia Carter and number 2 is Theodore Miller. As they were face to face with each other, Garcia lets out a pathetic provocation and show his lightning abilities to try and scare Theodore away. But Theodore can only see him as dead meat. The professor advised Garcia to save his power for the class battles or he will get expelled, and remind them the purpose of this magic battle so dogfight are not acceptable. In the beginning of the training, fight will be decided by a coin toss. Garcia Carter won the coin toss. Then he suddenly cast the fastest lightning bolt to attack and achieve quick win, but was blocked by Theo. Garcia, after attacking, he then provokes Theodore, which Theodore answered with a powerful firebolt. Garcia, underestimating Theo, thinks that the fireball wasn't that powerful and still doing a stupid pose, but ultimately he was proven wrong. As his barrier breaks, he steps back to dodge it. He's thinking how Theodore did that because targeting objects is easy, but fine-tuning the trajectory is not something anyone can do. So Garcia decides to take Theodore seriously. In full concentration, cast Heat Wave Fireball. So Theodore build a triangular pyramidal shield, so the attacks could be spilled to the sides and it will be made ineffective, and hits the barrier of the arena, creating smoke. As Theodore walks out of the smoke, this shocks Garcia, so it's Theodore's turn again, so he charges attack. And send a message to humble him. Then the crowd cheered for Theodore. But Garcia, a sore loser that he is, he can't accept the outcome, so he then challenged Theodore again, using his family's honor for another single battle, as he was reaching an artifact from his pocket, and state the condition: if Theodore were able to stop his attack, he'll admit that he lost. Garcia was desperate because if the rumors about Garcia being defeated by an inferior student spread, the reputation of the Carter family will be damaged. Right now in his eyes, this isn't just a battle, he's even trying to win with the help of an artifact now. The professor, seeing this, plans to suspend the match and punish Garcia, but he sees the eyes of Theodore to have such a fierce glare. Then Garcia chants to use his artifact. The burning dark red fangs of madness, the eyes of the abyss burning with anger, manifest yourself in front of me, now. Form, Heat Wave Bomb, Blaze Shell. And asks Theo if he will be able to defend against the attack, which is shot with killing determination. Theodore, tired of hearing Garcia's BS, he just ordered him to shoot already. Garcia laugh and overestimate himself, so he just attacks with the determination to kill Theodore and cast Blaze Shell, a fourth circle magic. Theodore calmly cast Earth Dome, a terrestrial element shield, and block Garcia's attack. As the arena were engulfed by smoke, we can see shock on the faces of the students, but a smirk on the professor, cause he knows that Theodore blocked the attack with ease. And comes out from the Rubel, Theodore shocking everyone but the professor. The battle was declared over. The professor went to Garcia and picks him up, just to punch his fugly face.